Another round of game previews, week 1. Let's go. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on these bitches. So first we got Eagles, Falcons. These teams, we'll see over the course of the year, but as all these week 1 matchups are, definitely interesting. But we're going to get right into it. This predicting, what's going to happen. We're talking about how the offense is going to function, starting with the run game, kind of building the puzzle, then to the pass game, how that's going to work, and at the end, how many points they're going to score. As well as the betting lines and all that stuff at the end. So first, like I said, Eagles, Falcons. When you look at the depth charts of these two teams, I'm going to be going back and forth for reference these two. Listen, the fully healthy Eagles offensive line is still an absolutely dominant force. We haven't seen it in a while, but that was a very key reason in the way that they were Super Bowl champions, at this point it's a while ago. But these guys are still really, really, really good. On the interior, Brandon Brooks is the best guard in football. He's going to kill people. Isaac Seumalo is very good as a run blocker. Jason Kelce, pretty known quality. All of them are good. And specifically in this matchup, this Falcons defense is soft as hell still. They are just really bad on the line of scrimmage. Grady Jarrett I love as a player, and he will make plays in the backfield at times, including in this game. But he is not a strong point of attack run defender. While he can get in the backfield and penetrate, he's way, way, way better as a pass rusher than that. They have probably the worst starting nose tackle in the entirety of the NFL. Tyler Davison is absolutely not helpful to your team winning. He's supposedly, a big fat run-stopping nose tackle. The problem is he gets blown 5 yards off the ball every time. So he kind of doesn't do that. I don't really understand how he's employed, but whatever. That makes things very easy on the Eagles. Jonathan Bullard has bounced around to a lot of teams, never been particularly impressive. He's at least okay, but this front is not encouraging. And while the Eagles, aren't as great on the edges as they are in the middle, because Jordan Mailata is a very pass-oriented player, not exactly a high-end run blocker. Lane Johnson's still an elite player in that aspect. And these Falcons edge guys are, also not very good. Dante Fowler is like a true speed rusher who is just bad on early downs the vast majority of the time. And there are other guys, Stephen Means, Jacob Tuioti Mariner, are at best. They do have some play strength to them as far as holding the edge in the run game, but it's not anything consistent or worrying if I'm the Eagles. So you are talking about a huge, huge, huge advantage there. And linebacker-wise, I like what Foyesade Lukun and Deion Jones do in a lot of ways. I think they're super good, and on different teams would be way, way better. But when you put them next to each other, you do get a situation with two super undersized guys who do not play up very strong to the run, and it's not like they're going to be clean and able to make plays because of how dominant the Eagles are at the line of scrimmage. The Eagles are going to be able to move the ball on the ground meaningfully well. In the pass game, it gets tougher. We'll get to Jalen Hurts, but first, with the pass rush, that's the part that, again, Grady Jarrett's exceedingly good. He is a danger no matter what team he's playing. Here, that is still the case, especially Isaac Seumalo can be a little bit vulnerable to him. Brandon Brooks is perfect, so I'm not that worried about it. Jason Kelce, frankly, too, matches up very well with him, but he's good enough that he's still an issue. There's really nothing else in the interior. Marlon Davidson was not very good as a rookie. John Kaminsky is just a bad player. And on the edges, you're fine if you're the Eagles. Lane Johnson is a high-end tackle. Jordan Mailata, like I said, this is what he's good at. He's not amazing at it, but he's a starting-level tackle who's not going to be bodied and pass rushed by even kind of good players, which the Falcons do not have. Dante Fowler, he'll get a little bit. He can bend the edge a little bit. Sure. That's it, though. These other, like I mentioned before, Means and Tuioti Mariner are just not useful players, and especially pass rushers that kind of offer nothing. So you're talking about a comfortable pocket for Jalen Hurts, which when you look at the receivers, is kind of, it's enough. Devonta Smith is a rookie, so he's in his first game. I'm not going to assume he's going to be really good, but boy, he has a chance. And if he just doesn't suck, then he's going to be a really positive force for this team. And while Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins are very one-dimensional players as far as just being fast guys, I will say that they both did things last year as rookies that were not horrible on the field. This team should be playing John Hightower. I'm not going to get into that, but those two will at least function in the flow of the offense and have some chances down the field, especially given what the Falcons are throwing out there in the secondary. I do like the Falcons' top two corners, A.J. Terrell and Fabian Moreau, to be clear. And they are actually positive matchups in this game. The other stuff is the problem. Isaiah Oliver's horrible. And I don't know if he's actually going to be playing in the slot or outside. We'll see how they move guys around. But either way, whoever he's on the field is just going to have an advantage. Isaiah Oliver's one of the worst downfield corners in the entirety of the NFL, cannot play the catch point to save his life, and it's not like he sticks with dudes there most of the time anyway. He's really bad. And that gives the Eagles a chance. And then they somehow employ Eric Harris as a starting safety right now, which is going to be a disaster. Deron Harmon is fine, but Eric Harris was one of the worst players in football the last couple of years. He theoretically has the athleticism to be a guy who covers space in the backfield, but doesn't. Mentally, he's not there at all, consistently in the wrong spot, consistently blows coverages. He's really bad. And that is scary because while, again, these Eagles receivers are really limited, and that will come up in games this season, here, with how fast they are and how much they can exploit teams doing goofy shit against Isaiah Oliver and Eric Harris, like they can have success. And frankly, their tight ends are still really good. People wrote, kind of want to write off Zach Ertz, but the dude is talented. He knows what he's doing as far as a underneath receiver. And Dallas Goedert's very, very good. He's a guy who can beat down the field. And while the Falcons do better there because Deion Jones plays out of Lucan, you're asking a lot for a linebacker to like shut down a tight end in any scenario, and it's not the case here, especially both those guys better as like zone middle of the field players. So the Eagles are going to be able to throw the ball too, on top of a pretty dominant rushing attack that features a rushing first quarterback. So honestly, I think they're obviously going to be pretty successful. 21 and 28 points. 28 points is where I have them. The reason that's not higher, Jalen Hurts is still just not a good passer. I should talk about him. Obviously, the quarterback is the most important part of any game. And he's just going to limit their offense. While he will play from a clean pocket fine, he will run the offense that they run into positive situations here. Running the ball specifically will help. He's just not good enough to consistently put up more points than that, which is why I have them at 21 to 28. So when we look at the other side of the ball, and it gets a little sketchy, but the Falcons, they do have, again, pathways to success. So getting the running game out of the way, because that's the bad one. This offensive line is not built to run the ball really at this point because of maybe that's going too far. They're not great at it. Specifically, they're starting Jalen Mayfield and Matt Hennessy on the interior. Jalen Mayfield is a rookie, a third-round rookie. That's probably not going to go amazingly, especially in his first game. And Matt Hennessy was not good as a rookie last year, does not have play strength. I'm worried about him in this game specifically. And while I do like their other players, Jake Matthews, Caleb McGarry, and Chris Lynch specifically, none of those are super high-end guys who are game-changing as far as run blocking goes. Lindstrom's, he's good. He's up there. But this Eagles front is still for real. These guys, especially as a run-defending team, are fucking awesome. Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, that is where they make their money at this point. They stonewall teams at the run line scrimmage all the time. Javon Hargrave is a super, super high-end nose tackle. It's kind of underrated. He missed some of last year with injury, but when he's on the field, he's very, very good, consistently controls the line of scrimmage. And Derek Barnett, for as many issues as he has as a former first-round pick, definitely plays the run fine. Between him, Josh Sweat, and Ryan Kerrigan is there too. Like, they're definitely good enough. And them bringing Eric Wilson helps them too, because they had some of the worst linebackers in the NFL last year, maybe the worst as far as consistent starters. And they get a little bit better here. Most times talking about Duke Riley, who's gone. Eric Wilson will competently play the run, especially behind a defensive front that's going to keep him this clean, and against a team in the Falcons who do not do creative things as far as running the ball or creating advantages down the field. So yeah, shit's not going to happen. The Falcons aren't going to be able to run the ball. So then we talk about the pass game, which obviously is the more important part. And we'll start with the pass rush. There it gets a little scary. I talked about how Fletcher Cox, I think, is way better as a run defender than he is as a pass rusher at this point, but he's still like an okay pass rusher. He does not have the explosiveness that he did like 3-4 years ago when he was a dominant force, but the dude still has really good technique. He's super strong. He's going to bow the pocket in backwards into Matt Ryan for sure. And he does positive things. And Brandon Graham, kind of the same thing, where he's not an actual winner as a pass rusher, not somebody who cleanly beats tackles to get at the quarterback for free. He makes tackles get uncomfortable, pushes them into the pocket, gets his hands up and around quarterbacks, does shit that makes the pocket uncomfortable, which is kind of the case on the other end here, too, against Caleb McGarry, because Caleb McGarry I like in a lot of ways, especially as a run blocker, but as a pass blocker, he's vulnerable to dudes who know how to bull rush, and the Eagles throw a lot of that at you between Graham, Derek Barnett, and with Josh Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan rotating, like it's worrisome. So that's how you start off. The saving grace of the Falcons offense here is that the Eagles secondary is still straight butt. Okay, they're not as bad as they were last year, but you have issues because neither of their outside corners can actually keep up with Calvin Ridley at all. Darius Slay is not a number one corner by any means at this point, especially against the receivers with any level of quickness or good route running ability, which, with Calvin Ridley. So, yeah, and then Steven Nelson has been a functional number 2 in the Steelers system, which asks unique things of their quarterback or corners for a while, and I'm a little bit more worried about him in this. And then they're still probably starting Avonte Maddox in the slot, who is a actively bad player. So yeah, Calvin Ridley's just going to eat this game. He's just going to constantly be open, consistently win up and down the field. He will win quickly. He will win over time. He will win in basically every way that you can. Because the Eagles corners are just not good enough to stick with him. And frankly, that kind of applies to Russell Gage too. Russell Gage is absolutely a good player. And while his usefulness is limited once you get past, like 12, 15 yards by virtue of not being an explosive athlete in a straight line, that type of stuff, he's way more of an underneath possession receiver. He's pretty goddamn good at it. And being matched up with Avonte Maddox is a big plus. So they do have tools there. And then between Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst at tight end, they're really good, and it's not like the Eagles are going to be out here playing very well into tight ends. Eric Wilson, I guess. Alex Singleton, kind of same thing. Like, they're not the worst of the worst, but they're not positives. So you get an end result where it's like Matt Ryan in an uncomfortable pocket, throwing to receivers who do function, especially Calvin Ridley, who can be the reason this offense succeeds. Something to be concerned about. I will say Matt Ryan sucks in the red zone. He has forever. He will forever outside of Kyle Shanahan. And that's because he gets panicked, does not make good decisions there. But that's kind of why I just want to point out I don't necessarily have them going crazy offensively. So I have them at 20 to 27 points. So I think this game is going to be really, really close, which is why I do like the Eagles, because they get 3.5. And I think this looks like it's very likely a field goal game. I'm not crazy about it because I do see ways for both these offenses to be successful enough that any given stop or turnover or goofy shit happening can lead to issues. And I do think the Eagles, because of how dominant they are going to be on the ground, their success is a lot easier to come by than what the Falcons have in this game. So I do think they're going to win, but not something I think is even remotely worth betting on. And then as far as the over-under, dude, nah. Falcons are too stupid. They do too much goofy shit in the red zone for me to comfortably bet. And it's not like Jalen Hurts is a super high-end player, so I would, I guess, take the under. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a complete coin flip. So Browns-Chiefs, this is the big one. Big one for the weekend. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're feeling a little bit risky, this is where you can make your money, because one of these teams looks real good here. This Browns offense, so I'm just going to kind of spoil it at the beginning here. The Browns could very comfortably, and probably should be, the best team in the AFC this year. Their roster's nuts, and they're really, really, really good. So when we look at this specifically, this matchup, yeah, they're set up for success in the run game, which is super relevant to the Browns. Obviously, one of the heaviest running teams in football, one of the most dominant at it. You are talking about, with everybody healthy on the offensive line, the best offensive line in football by a very comfortable margin, with literally elite players at every single spot. It's nuts. They go fucking crazy. And against this Chiefs front seven, they're going to have success. Now, the Chiefs are doing some interesting things. It looks like Chris Jones, their all-world defensive tackle, who I think very highly of, is going to be playing defensive end on early downs. I see it's interesting, I got to say, and I do see how it could be useful specifically in this matchup, as the Browns are a pretty straightforward, power run scheme in a lot of ways. They're more complicated. They're better than that, but as opposed to, like the 49ers, Rams, that type of shit. They are more like straightforward, beat you off the ball. Chris Jones can help with that, as controlling space on the edge and being really, really strong at the point of attack. But he's not this monster laterally, and isolating players like that, no matter how good they are, in space on the edge is kind of scary. And past him, while you do have guys who can hold up at the line of scrimmage, and Derek Nottie and Alex Okafor, maybe in Frank Clark, I don't know if he's going to play. You do can compete a little bit, but none of those guys are going to meaningfully make plays in the backfield by any means. And for as decent as they are as point of attack guys, they are not good enough compared to how good the Browns offensive line is to consistently hold up, which means you're putting a lot of stress on linebackers to actually make plays. And this fucking linebacker unit is horrible. So Anthony Hitchens is like a between the guards, slow as shit, old school linebacker who's going to get exploited by huge talent gaps between him and the Browns running backs. And Ben Niemann is one of the absolute worst players in football, who as at this point is slated to start at the other linebacker spot. That's really concerning if you're the Browns. And Nick Bolton, he's a second-round rookie. Maybe he's good. But most of the time, rookie linebackers aren't. And especially in his first game, I would not be looking at him as a positive impact. Tyrann Mathieu, coming off COVID, does help. He is a good run defender, but it's just not enough. You got to understand how goddamn good the Browns are at running the ball. And then when you get to the passing game, frankly, the Browns are still good because pass rush-wise, they are good enough to control Chris Jones. Now, Chris Jones is a dominant player who will still get pressure because he's so good, to be clear. But it is nowhere near the extent he will against other teams, and the Chiefs are super dependent on it because outside of him, shit ain't happening. Frank Clark is okay, but these tackles are better, and they don't do creative blitzing stuff. They don't, none of that. So you're talking about a really, really clean pocket outside of Chris Jones, and Baker Mayfield, frankly, can slide well enough in the pocket to deal with one source of pressure that's not even all that terrifying in this game. And then you're talking about Odell Beckham Jr., assuming he plays, which everything points to him playing. Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, all really, well, those first three are really, really good. Donovan Peoples-Jones very well might be. Running downfield against a secondary that, while I like their top two on the outside, gets pretty weak. Charvarius Ward and L'Jarius Sneed are both really good. But they're not shut down A1 players. They're not going to fucking stick with players the caliber of especially Odell, but him and Jarvis Landry, they're going to limit them from being nuts, but they're still they're not amazing. And then you're talking about Mike Hughes starting in the slot. Mike Hughes is not good. He's not horrible, but he's not a player who can keep up with those guys again, especially without pass rush to boost, his ability to only stick with guys for a few seconds. And safety wise, while the Chiefs are okay, especially with Tyrann Mathieu playing, they're not amazing there. Daniel Sorensen struggles with long speed, which isn't scary against Odell Beckham Jr. Juan Thornhill is just fine as a deep safety. He's reasonable. He does help in this game, but not a huge difference maker. And their tight ends, what the Browns use very efficiently in the passing game, are going against the worst coverage linebackers in the NFL by a pretty large margin. So the Browns have tons and tons of tools for success on offense and defensively. Listen, everybody assumes the Chiefs are going to be amazing because they're the Chiefs and they have been for a couple of years. But you got to look at what's actually happening on this roster. And this offensive line, man, especially in week one, I don't even really see how this goes well, to be honest with you. Right? So they're starting three players who've never played a game in the NFL. Creed Humphrey at center, Trey Smith at guard, and Lucas Niang. I don't know how that typo happened. That should be a G. None of those guys have played in the NFL before. And that's goofy as hell, to be honest with you, to assume that they're going to be good, to assume they're even going to be okay, especially three starting next to each other, that is assuming a whole lot. So first, talk about the running game. And there, listen, Orlando Brown adds to that. He's a real pusher at the line of scrimmage. He's really good. And Joe Thuney's a super elite guard. They can do fine, but the other shit is a big issue. And frankly, this Browns front four is elite, especially as run defense, because Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney are two of the highest end run defenders you're going to find. That's why Jadeveon Clowney, it's the only place he lives up to his high, his first overall pick status, the big name he has. He's an elite run defender. And Myles Garrett is every bit that too. So they're just not good enough to beat them. Even Orlando Brown, come on, he's fine, but it's not. And then on the interior, while they're not amazing, they're not weak. They're not going to get fucking smacked by this team. So you're not talking about good rushing from the Chiefs, who frankly don't do all that much smart stuff in the ground game. They do a ton of stuff to provide value in the passing game, but they're limited there. And it's not like the Browns linebackers are all that bad, especially with Anthony Walker, and there's a very, very safe player. So it's not good. And then passing the ball wise, it doesn't really get all that much better. It's clearly better because Mahomes, obviously, but there's real pass rush here. Orlando Brown has played in a super, super beneficial scheme tailored very specifically to his talents with the Ravens. And while he's still going to do some positive things, is really kind of worrying as far as the guy's going to take a bunch of pass sets in the game because he isn't all that amazing at it and has been really protected by the Ravens running the ball so much. And he's your good tackle. Again, a guy who's never played a snap going against goddamn Myles Garrett, the best edge defender, best pass rusher in the entirety of the NFL. It's not, I promise you, it's not going to go well. And on the other side, Jadeveon Clowney, between him, Takk McKinley, there's enough to get pressure there too. On the interior, you have Malik Jackson, who's still got it, is still going to beat up on Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey fairly significantly. Joe Tooney's going to be fine, but you need a lot more than that to be a good pass protecting line. And receiver-wise, Travis Kelce's still amazing. He's still going to drive plays. He's still going to be a really positive force. But that's it. Tyreek Hill is really good, but Denzel Ward is pretty uniquely suited to keep up with him. Denzel Ward is very good about keeping receivers from going crazy in any individual game because he's constantly in the, he's not super aggressive, but he's constantly in the area at the catch point, that type of shit. And that is still the case here. Denzel Ward, while he can't run with Tyreek Hill down the field, is going to keep up with him over the vast majority of the field. And the other Chiefs receivers fucking suck. This is something I've been on the Chiefs about this offseason, is they're depending on Mecole Hardman, who's cannot function as an NFL receiver, really. Demarcus Robinson, who's mediocre at best, and then Byron Pringle, who might be the best of the three, but is not a difference maker by any means, against a secondary that I'm not crazy excited about, but they have Troy Hill. Troy Hill is way better at what he does than what the Chiefs receivers are. And Greg Newsome and Greedy Williams, they're both high, they're both their first and second round pick that a lot of people like, that I'm not going to guarantee are good, but they really got a chance here. And with the addition of John Johnson, the Browns go from the worst safety play in the league to above average at the very least. If not good, John Johnson meaningfully hurts what Patrick Mahomes does as far as, throwing the ball down the field, especially compared to, again, what was here with the Browns before. And this, listen, you're assuming so much about what Patrick Mahomes has to do with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill behind a bad offensive line, that while that will still work at times, I'm not going to freak out about this Browns defense. It's not going to consistently go all that well. So for the Browns, I have them scoring 24 to 32 points. And for the Chiefs, I have them at 20 to 27. And frankly, that's being super generous, again, because Patrick Mahomes is that good. So this line is nuts. I think the Browns are going to win this game. I love them getting 5.5 points. They're just a better team. And while I'm still a little sketched, obviously you are betting against Patrick Mahomes at home, where Travis Kelce's still very good and Tyreek Hill is still scary. There are obviously reasons where I'm not all that crazy about it, but I would definitely pick the Browns to win. And as far as the over-under goes, that number is really high. The Browns are going to run the ball a whole lot. I'm not convinced the Chiefs are going to have all that much offensive success, so I do lean the under, but not my craziest thing, again, because these are two really good offenses. So the last of this video, the Packers Saints, another one I feel pretty goddamn good about. Starting with the Packers. This is going to be unique. This team is so used to having a really good offensive line. They're going from what they had to starting two rookies, two rookies and two more or less backup tackles. That's Elton Jenkins moving from guard to tackle, Billy Turner, I guess, starting as of right now. It's not as easy as it was. Luckily, they play this Saints team, though. So first, with running the ball, Packers are going to be fine. They do a positive job as far as creating space for their guys, doing good things in the running game, putting Aaron Jones out in space to actually beat players. And while the Saints are still pretty good at spots, I really like their edge defenders and Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport in the run game, especially Cameron Jordan, super high end. The rest of their team, I don't know, man. They're missing David Onyemata, who's a huge deal. He's a really, really good player. And they're probably starting, I guess, Christian Ringo on the interior. They just released him, Travis Adams, actually, as I'm making this pretty much. And then Malcolm Roach and Shai Tuttle are just whatever guy. They are not the same strong on the interior that they have been. And a linebacker, too. Demario Davis is still good, but he's not an amazing space player. He worries me a little bit against the Packers. And K'Wan Alexander's still going to miss a bunch of tackles. And they're maybe starting Caden Ellis. And Malcolm Jenkins can do some things positively against the run, but again, he lacks athleticism in a lot of ways at this point in his career, given how old he is. The Packers are going to be able to run the ball to at least a reasonable point. And then we talk about the pass game, and you're chilling, right? Like, yeah, Cameron Jordan is scary, sure. But Elton Jenkins is really, really good. I'm not all that worried about that matchup. And Billy Turner, frankly, his issues come with like speed rushers and or guys with crazy athleticism. That doesn't describe Cam Jordan at this point. And I think he'll mostly be able to handle the bull rush power stuff that he does. So you're more or less okay there. On the interior, while I would be normally worried about the Packers given they're starting 2 rookies, who the hell is rushing the pass from the interior on the Saints? Again, if they had David Onyemata, it'd be a way different thing. But Malcolm Roach and Shai Tuttle, whatever, man. They are not scary. So you get a mostly non-threatening pass rush, and you give that to Aaron Rodgers. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, Devontae Adams is going to consistently win. He's the best receiver in football. He will always effectively be open. I will say Marshall Lattimore does a better job than most as far as sticking with him, but it's not good enough. And right now, the Saints' number 2 corner, I guess, is rookie Paulson Adebo. They just released they just put Ken Crawley on IR. Desmond Trufant, they signed. I don't know if he's going to be ready to play, though. Yikes. It's bad. And and the slot, I like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a lot, but I've talked in the offseason how positive I think Randall Cobb is for this team as far as a guy who can win quickly on the underneath. And he's the type of receiver that does still give Chauncey Gardner-Johnson issues, who's a bigger slot guy who's not all that amazing laterally. So you have Randall Cobb winning quickly. You have Devontae Adams winning always. And you have the other receivers, especially Allen Lazard, who I don't love, but are going up against Paulson Adebo, which is not worrisome. And then it's Aaron Rodgers throwing them the ball. Like, this shit's just going to end up going well. It's just not really concerning. And people still like the Saints roster a lot, and I just don't see it at all. Especially, I will say Aaron Rodgers also notoriously kills rookie corners and or mistakes. Look at what he did week 1 against the Vikings last year. Paulson Adebo fits that category very, very, very much. So I have the Packers at 23 to 30 points, which frankly – it could get a little bit higher than that. So we talk about the Saints offense, and it's Jameis Winston, which it's tough. So first, are they going to be able to run the ball? There, I will say yes. So their offensive line is still very, very good, especially in the tackle position on the run game. Ryan Ramczyk, as far as I'm concerned, the best tackle in football. Teron Armstead's still a super high-end player, especially in the run game. And this Packers front is not scary. Zadarius Smith actually looks like he's not going to play, so you're probably talking about Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary on the edges, who, while maybe you're okay, Saints definitely have an advantage there. And I love Kenny Clark on the interior, but I don't know, Saints do a pretty good job about not running straight into a nose tackle all the time as far as getting their actual good players into space. So that is a positive for the Saints. I will definitely give them that. But it's not like this dominant force, right? The Packers are still mostly going to be they're not going to get fucking smoked against this scheme anyway. There are teams that will smoke them, but it's not the Saints. And then in the passing game, I'm sorry, man, but it's Jameis Winston. He's just going to hurt he's just a bad player. He consistently makes wrong decisions. I do see a little bit how Sean Payton's going to help him out as far as making easy reads underneath, but that's not something he's ever consistently done well. And if anything, I think you're taking the positive of Jameis Winston as far as pushing the ball down the field away from him in that case. And you're just getting a guy who's going to make really bad decisions into really unsafe areas for little benefit at times. And he's throwing to receivers who just are not going to get open either. Jair Alexander's amazing. And he's going to match up with Marcus Callaway, and Marcus Callaway is not good. He's fine as like a 4th receiver who can do some things underneath. And I know he went off in the preseason. He will not, I'm telling you, he will not beat Jair Alexander with any level of consistency. And then I guess their other receivers are Lil Jordan Humphrey and Deontay Harris. I love Deontay Harris as a gadget player, as even a slot receiver if you have better options around him, but not as a consistent target. And Lil Jordan Humphrey is just one of these big outside slow receivers who struggles in the modern NFL that Kevin King is actually very well suited to match up with. Kevin King, he does have his issues, sure, but it's not against this type of receiver. So the Packers secondary is like in very good spot, as well as their safeties being pretty goddamn good, being very safe, and being the type of guys who Jameis Winston is going to make mistakes into. And while the pass rush isn't really there, especially without Zadarius Smith, the Saints aren't perfect, especially on the interior. Cesar Ruiz can be targeted a little bit, and Kenny Clark is a kind of a relevant pass rusher. Kingsley Keke did a little bit too. I don't love that for the Packers, but What's nice is that even if you give Jameis Winston a bunch of time in the pocket, he's not going to use it to eat you alive the way that other quarterbacks are. So I have the Saints at 16 to 24 points, which is that's generous. That's Sean Payton, Alvin Kamara. But yeah, no, I love the Packers in this game. 3.5, I will say, is just, obviously you don't like the hanging half point there, but whatever. Packers are way, way better. They have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback versus Jameis Winston. This game isn't even a home game for the Saints. It's in Jacksonville. And I'm very, very comfortable with the Packers winning this game pretty comfortably. I would take the over lightly. We'll see. It's Jameis Winston. That generally boosts the over with turnovers and goofy shit, but I don't know exactly who's going to interact with this new offense. But yeah, that's the next round of previews. God, I love talking about fucking football week 1. Let's go.